Hey guys, what's going on? It's Salvage here, and today we're going to be talking about The Last of Us Part 2 and Ellie's weapons and tactics that she's going to be using in The Last of Us Part 2. Now, before we get into the video, if we could get around like 60 likes, that'd be absolutely amazing. You guys have been killing it with The Last of Us videos, and if you guys do enjoy this video, get all the way to the end and then like the video, that'd be absolutely amazing. You guys' support has been getting me through these last few weeks of just constant uploading, and I honestly really love it. So let's get into the video. One of the first weapons that she's probably going to have in the game is actually going to be her switchblade. It's already been revealed. We've already seen a poster with her holding it with her tattoo and all the butterflies and stuff coming out of her arm. We've already seen the switchblade, so obviously it's going to be in this game. It's going to be a huge part, of course, because it's very much like a shiv. Shivs are just one hit knives to the back, usually with clickers, and if the switchblade is going to be very similar to that, then I can expect it. Obviously, when she was younger, she wasn't able to really do hard-hitting stab moves like, you know, Joel would with a shiv. She was only able to really hang on to them and stab them multiple times, but now that she's 19, she's going to be able to use that switchblade very easily, and shivs might not even be in the game if the switchblade is going to be the replacement, kind of like the Left Behind DLC that we got, where she didn't even need a shiv, she just had her switchblade, and it was pretty cool. I'm surprised that Joel doesn't use it or have his own switchblade. The next one that might actually appear, and actually will appear, will be the machete. Now, we saw this in the first trailer when Joel actually was walking through the building and we saw all those people getting cut up and stuff, and then we went to the room where Ellie was in. On the floor right next to her feet is actually a machete. Now, that machete obviously was the weapon of choice for whatever slaughter happened in that house, so clearly the machete is going to be a big part of the game, like the first game. Of course, the machete is one of the funnest things to use, and so is the axe. I think the axe is one of the coolest things to use as well. You get that around Tommy's Town, and then you get to use it for most of the part. But for The Last of Us Part 2, Ellie most likely will have that for a majority of the time, since of course they've been surviving in this world for the last 4 years after the first game. They're going to be using more weapons. There's going to be more infected around areas that aren't usually infected because of the time period that they are in. 4 years after the infected. I mean, after 4 years of, I think the first 4 years, I would imagine that there would be a lot of deaths. So the last 4 years that we are playing now, I would imagine that there would be more infected after the huge gap between part 1 and part 2. Another thing that's more of a theory and speculation would be brass knuckles. Now, this is not confirmed, but if you want Ellie to go hand to hand against other people, like legit fighting, punching type of stuff, I don't know if you're gonna really be able to do that with a 19-year-old girl. Yeah, she's been surviving. Yeah, she could probably hold her own, but when it comes to multiple people, you're not gonna be able to just run at them and charge them and punch them with no weapon. You are going to need a weapon. You're not gonna be able to just fend off 15 people, you know? This isn't Joel. Joel would be able to do that. You could run into a group of 3 people and manage your own, and maybe even turn the tide of the entire battle to your side. But for Ellie, she doesn't really have that. So adding brass knuckles would be an incredible idea, and I think that it would actually work very well for the game and the story that they are trying to get through. This is a much more realistic and grounded world, so of course one way to make it even more realistic is to have Ellie use something to make her punches harder, which would be brass knuckles, and I would love to see it, and I think a lot of people would too. Now, a few tactics that can actually happen, and this is from a lot of my comments. One of them could be whistling in a wooded area, which is basically what we're going to be getting as a forest, because we are in Seattle. Most of the gameplay that we've seen so far, most of the concept art that we've seen, is in a wooded area. So whistling could be a very good way to get somebody behind a tree that you need them to be there, and you need to take them out one by one. Whistling was something that was actually in the first game for Ellie. In Billstown, she was trying to whistle, and then when you finally got up to the point where, of course, the ambush happens, then she finally starts to whistle. And I think that was kind of like a foreshadowing to the second game of what Naughty Dog wanted to do with some type of gameplay, and that's whistling. If you whistle in one area, someone's gonna be like, holy shit, what the hell was that? You know, kind of like a glass or a brick, and it would be very limited to certain sections. So, you know, you can't just keep whistling. You have to have like a timer or a certain amount of times that you can use the whistle. And I think that would be a pretty cool idea if they could put that in a game, because Ellie was whistling in the first game, and I think that was really funny that they were doing that. And it seems possible that they could do this in the second game, and I hope that they do. Now, this isn't really a tactic, but it's more of an ability that she's going to be able to do. Ellie is going to be able to swim, and I don't know if they're going to be using swimming or water or something like that to make it a more a crazy experience. Like for The Last of Us Part 1, what I want to say here is it's like a set piece. When Ellie and Joel were at the final part right before they get into the hospital with the fireflies, you know, the set piece was water. Ellie couldn't swim, stuff like that. Joel had to rescue her from the water. There could be moments where Ellie has to get out of a certain situation by swimming, or she can probably do stealth takedowns from the water now, which would probably be really cool. There are a lot of lakes, there are a lot of rivers. I mean, we're in a very healthy environment. Washington is a very beautiful state, and it has a lot of forests and a lot of lakes and rivers, so swimming could be a thing. Not only that, overflooding of cities could also make for an interesting thing for combat sections as well, if they decide to add the swimming ability to certain combat sections, which would be, that'd be so weird, but I think that Naughty Dog could pull that off if they try it. And the last thing, the last tactic, is a dog. Now, we saw the mocap dog, okay? We've seen the mocap dog, and the dog can play a huge part in the game if they decide to go that route. A lot like Riley from Call of Duty Ghosts, you can call on your dog to go attack certain people quietly, but at the same time, I don't know if that could really work. The dog itself would have to be very trained. I mean, 4 years, yeah, but I don't know if Ellie's gonna have the dog. I don't know if somebody else is gonna have the dog, but a possible dog companion for Ellie would be really cool to see. And I would love to see a dog use their tactics as well, combined with Ellie's, in combat sections to get rid of a bunch of hunters or infected. That would be weird though, you know, if the dog was killing the infected by like biting them, but at the same time, maybe you don't need to use a dog for the infected sections. Either way, I think that Ellie is going to get a massive amount of variety in her weapons and tactics in this game. I think The Last of Us Part 2 is going to improve upon what The Last of Us 1 did, which was actually give us more stuff to do, more stuff to use during combat sections for both the hunters and the infected, and more abilities at our disposal, so we can feel like we are actually in control of these fights, that we are actually the ones dictating where it goes, what happens. And it would actually be impressive if not only those tactics were in here, but most of the weapons that they had in the first game comes back for the second game. I know that Naughty Dog is working incredibly hard on this game, and I really hope that they do an amazing job for the variety of the weapons. That's not just like a pistol or, you know, a handgun. I hope that they actually bring in a certain amount of variety in this game, and I think that they will. I forgot to mention a bow and arrow as well. I would imagine that the bow and arrow would return. I mean, it really doesn't make sense for it to not return. It was a huge part in the first game, and I know that a lot of people really have grown an attachment between both Ellie and the bow being together because of the winter season. So of course the bow would return. I would think that the rifle would return as well, and most of the weapons from the first game would most likely return, especially if we're going to be playing as Joel somewhere in this game. If we're going to be playing as Joel somewhere in this game, then the likelihood of all of those weapons returning, and then Joel doing most of the stuff with those weapons, I mean, it's a very big possibility, and it makes a lot of sense for most of those things to be returning. So that's about it, guys. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Did you guys like this video? Did you guys want to see more weapons and tactics in The Last of Us 2? What do you guys think is going to be in The Last of Us 2? Tell me in the comments below. If you are new, go ahead and subscribe, and if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.